excited to have Chris Hermanowicz, an investor with DOCOMO Ventures here in the Experience Center. We are prepping for an exciting event that we're doing on the topic of data and AI as an official side event of TechCrunch Disrupt. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
For our audience, can you tell them a little bit about what you do? What is DOCOMO Ventures, and what does it mean to be an investor for DOCOMO Ventures?
Sure. So DOCOMO Ventures is the corporate venture arm, effectively we're a strategic investor for NTT Group, which is, for those that are unaware, one of the largest IT solutions companies in the world, an organization actually made up of many, many companies, 900 plus, right? Something like that. NTT DOCOMO, the largest mobile carrier in Japan, is kind of a key pillar, a key part of NTT Group. But my job as an investor is to think about what technologies and solutions are going to change the world over the next few decades, things that are going to have an impact on NTT Group company businesses. I look, immediate short-term, kind of what can we change in the next year to 10 years down the line, those types of technologies. And so we're investing in startups at various stages. Very excited to do that, and I've been doing that for over 8 years now.
So when you think about what does it mean to be investing and scouting startups, I mean, I know from our conversations that we've had in the past that you look at a lot of different markets, right? And it would be great to ask you specifically about how you think about investing in data and AI. The latest buzz around ChatGPT and generative AI certainly isn't the starting point for you thinking about that. But in general, what does it mean to be an investor in enterprise B2B startups?
I would say, going a little bit more onto NTT DOCOMO Ventures, what we actually do, we're a sort of a thematic investor. We, even though we invest in a broad range of technologies and companies, they're kind of focused in a few key areas. One is enterprise software, verticalized SaaS. Then we look at kind of hardware and software as they come together, hardware as a service, I guess. We're really looking at the core businesses of NTT Group companies, DOCOMO, NTT Data, and so forth, and the end customers, right, on the consumer side in Japan, the millions, tens of millions of customers that DOCOMO has. What can we do? What can we invest in that's going to really have an impact on the end customers, the consumers, or in the case of enterprises? You asked about data and AI. So I think data and AI has everyone's excited about it now, right? As if it hasn't existed for a decade or two or longer. I suppose generative AI, hasn't really existed until 2020 or the Transformers paper came out from Google. Enterprises have been using AI for decades, in deterministic statistical methods. But in the last decade, right, it's been natural language processing and innovations in computer vision, which have kind of had a step order sort of change, or the value through these technologies has actually really been amplified in the last decade, and generative AI is no different. Now we're able to create images with natural language prompts. We're able to communicate and converse with a system that actually gives us really robust, really good outputs, and that's going to have an impact in any kind of interfacing function, where users need to talk to a system, users want to need support for a product, users want enablement for sales, customers have an issue, and so forth. That's a natural sort of focus area, or that's a natural area where value is being generated. But this is sort of the roundabout way of answering your question. I think across all the different themes that we look at, AI is present, right? And data and AI are kind of the underpinnings now of most of companies, right? Most of security, enterprise SaaS, consumer. On the hardware side, drones flying around, that's all been enabled by.
Well, you're a proud investor, so tell us about your portfolio companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have over 100 portfolio companies both in the U.S. and Japan. And so, as a investor for NTT DOCOMO Ventures, we do invest in the U.S. significantly and in Japan, but we can't forget about Europe and Israel. We have some great companies ranging from, on the enterprise side, I led an investment for Legion Technologies, which is a very neat solution that really is enabling employers and employees, frontline employees, to have better jobs. How can we make frontline workers' lives better through AI, through software, helping optimize schedules, helping reduce the overhead on managers and employees to have to communicate with one another. They're really sort of pioneering sort of the next way that we're all thinking about work. And so on that topic, workforce management, Legion Technologies is one, but in the way that we work every day, we're in meetings, we're talking to each other. We have another great portfolio company called Otter AI. Some of the TechCrunch folks will be very familiar with Otter, or those of you that are in meetings, either virtual or in person. Otter essentially transcribes the whole content from your conversation, turns it into digestible notes, makes it very easy for you to reference that. So sometimes you don't actually have to be in a meeting. You can read an Otter summary note transcript, and you get all the information that you need, even though you weren't there in person. So it's all about bringing productivity and efficiency and improvements in people's lives, either at home or in a work setting, whether you're behind a desk or behind a screen at a desk, or in a kiosk or in a store.
So when you think about transforming the experience of, shift workers, schedules, and having software behind that's really thinking for you, that's smarter than just sort of like almost what we call process automation. That's smart behind. So in a previous interview we had with Wendy Collins, the Chief AI Officer of Aspirant, she was talking about how a lot of times these smart behind technologies that are really using machine learning and language models, whether they're large or medium or small, but that technology behind to be smart for you. Curious your experience in looking at the startup ecosystem about that versus sort of enterprise saying, well, is RPA, robotic process automation, and sort of the more traditional stuff still really relevant? What's the case for the really cutting edge innovation?
The LLMs and the generative AI that we're seeing today is, it's really meaningful and impactful. Will it solve every sort of problem? So a lot of people conflate, AGI, right, artificial general intelligence, with LLMs and Gen AI, or vice versa, you know what I mean? There's going to be room, absolutely, for other modalities and techniques, whether they're simplistic, for lack of a better word, machine learning, to deep learning, to LLMs, and there's going to be new things constantly coming, and I'm actually really looking forward to sort of the evolution and the next versions of generative AI. So, companies can't rip out what works, and let me rephrase that. Perhaps they shouldn't necessarily just rip out things that work and replace them with the new cutting edge hot technology without really digging in and making sure that you're getting the performance. It's at a cost that's palatable. So my take on it is a little bit like it's not a contrarian take, but I think we've approached a place with generative AI where it's definitely not the maximum potential, but it's at kind of a peak of this first phase of Gen AI. What's the second and the third phase? Some people have been floating these terms of, LLM maximalist or LLM pragmatist. So can you just brute force everything with an LLM? It's probably not the right way to do it. Can you bring LLMs into many products? Yes. If you take a pragmatic approach to it, absolutely. My view there is that there's a lot of room for these technologies to to come into enterprises, to be integrated into products, to be integrated into internal workflows, and replace old technologies, old existing tools. But you can't just you can't. I don't think you can wipe everything clean, right? And ignore the legacy, I guess.
Well, certainly not. And as you think about investing, that's one way of determining whether or not a company has long-term value. But when you're also thinking about trying out technologies, testing out emerging tech, working with startups when you're an enterprise especially, do you have any thoughts or experience on how to do that in a way where you can bring more of the startup thinking and product portfolio closer to enterprise when there's really it's not always easy to do?
I don't remember who kind of came up with this original idea, but it's about, how startups or organizations are kind of a series of experiments, and as you raise more money, you can make more experiments, bigger experiments of different sizes. So, if you're a large organization, you should devote some capability to trying things out, right? And skunkworks, R&D teams, all that kind of stuff. You should have somewhere in your organization a place that is open and willing and can move quickly on these types of technologies and testing it out. But really, my core point is, it comes down to what's the mission of your company? What's the product that you've built or are building, you want to build? Who are your customers? If you can't really deliver on those and the value that you're trying to create, then bringing AI, I don't necessarily think that's the panacea that's going to solve your problems. You need to have a really solid AI strategy, and you have to ask yourself questions that are very, to my point, like pragmatic or practical. It's like, how can this improve our cost structure on customer support, or how can this accelerate sort of the product roadmap or the features that we were planning on building? And there's this like wild card also of something that's unexpected, unknown, and you have to obviously take that into account. But it's oftentimes hard to come up with that wild card unless you have a place that's like trying things out, and you need to have proof points, right? So I think big organizations or organizations at any size should have the appropriate sort of groups with the appropriate funding and resources to try these technologies out and iterate and bring proof points and results to the product leaders or the leaders. Then they're going to decide, okay, well, we're launching this product with technology X, or we're integrating this into our workflow. Have you found that startups that can find these teams can accelerate their journey? It's a tricky thing because a lot of startups will might go down the wrong path of chasing down like an R&D team in a big company, and you might be able to get a POC and you might be able to get an additional contract, but what happens 3 years later, right? One thing that's really important is sort of the tie-in to executive leadership, right? Innovation groups in big enterprises need to have support from key executives, and that support needs to be kind of constantly, I wouldn't call it reevaluated, but validated and maintained. So, on one hand, it's a phenomenal hack, to find that innovation group and find the kind of the engineer that's, kind of experimenting with this and, say, hey, we've got this great new technology, or here's some stuff on the data ops or engineering side you can use, try it out. And they'll say yes, but then what's the next step? So you kind of have to constantly be kind of pushing for larger, wider adoption always, not just within little innovation centers in organizations. So Chris, if I'm a startup or I'm an investor, do you interested in chatting with you? Is there a way to get a hold of you? Is LinkedIn the best way? Absolutely. I mean, I live and die on LinkedIn. Yeah. I mean, that's a phenomenal way. I'm not as active on Twitter or X as I could be, but LinkedIn's a great way. We have a website, NTT DOCOMO Ventures. You can Google it. Google's still perfect. Still's going to be around. Awesome. Right? So that's a great way to get in touch. Well, thanks for the time, Chris. Great to have you on. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Megan.